Today I'm going to be unboxing Elder Scrolls Call to Arms, as well as giving you my first impressions on not only the quality of the components that make this game, but equally of the game itself, right after this. Hey everybody, Sam here from the Tabletop Hub, your one-stop shop for all things tabletop. And the folks over at Modiphius sent over a copy of the Elder Scrolls Call to Arms. Not only the core rules box, but equally a set of all the miniatures as well. Now, I got this a good few weeks ago now. I've just been spending some time kind of familiarizing myself with it and equally building up some of the miniatures, which has taken a lot longer than I would have liked to, but we'll chat about that later on. When I say this is going to be an unboxing, it's not going to be one of those videos where I just point the camera and we literally take things out of the box. Instead, I just want to chat through what you get in the boxes for the game and just chat through my impressions of the quality of them and what I think of them as well. This is it's a tricky one, I'm going to be honest. There's a lot to love about this game, but there's equally, for me, a really massive issue that I have with it, and an issue that I think is going to be really prevalent for people who are new to tabletop gaming and who may be using this as a way to get into miniatures games. But we'll get to that as we get to the miniatures. Unfortunately, there's a little bit of a spoiler for you. But let's start off chatting about the core rules box. So this, basically the way that Modiphius are releasing Elder Scrolls Call to Arms is very different than the way they released Fallout Wasteland Warfare, which holds quite a few similarities to Elder Scrolls Call to Arms whenever it comes to the rules and certain ways that the game plays. So with Fallout Wasteland Warfare, you bought the starter set, it had your rules, some miniatures, some cards in there as well. And then with the expansions, if you bought the Minutemen box, you got the Minutemen miniatures inside that little box, as well as the cards you needed for those miniatures, as well as maybe a scenario. What they found, what Modiphius found releasing Fallout Wasteland Warfare in that way is that because they were getting so many different parts from so many different suppliers, if the cards were late, then that meant that the miniatures as a whole were late and they couldn't get shipped. And they've changed all of that to now what they do is the miniatures, when you buy that little box of miniatures, it's just the minis inside. If you want the cards for that mini, they release a separate little box, which is the cards for everything in that wave, which means that even if you don't have the miniatures for a certain unit, you have the information you need to be able to maybe swap it out for a different mini. It was a very different way of doing it for me, and for a lot of you as well, whenever the game came out, but I think actually has worked out quite well, and I think it's a pretty good idea. They're going for the exact same thing with Call to Arms. So when you get the core rules box, you'll get the cards for all of the initial kind of launch minis. And then after, I think maybe 1 or 2 months post-launch, they're going to be releasing the Chapter 1 card pack, which will have all of the cards for all of the other, actually I think it's 1 month post-launch. They're going to be releasing the card pack for all of the minis they're going to be releasing for like the first wave. So even if you don't have the miniatures at home, but you have some other D&D minis, you could swap them in. It's a really good system. Now inside the core rules box here, obviously you have all of the cards you'll need, weapons, spells, enemy cards, as well as unit cards as well. Now on the whole, the cards themselves, I like them. I think they're really good quality. The information on them, very easy to understand, really nice style. The cards I don't like at all are the unit cards, because they just feel really lazy to me in one aspect. Now, nice to look at, they have the little bits at the side for you to put in the armor and weapons, etc. The one problem I have with the unit cards is the actual photo of the unit. And that's because it's just a screenshot from the game of that particular character or that particular unit. And for me, I just think it makes the cards look cheaper. Do you know what I mean? I just think it detracts from the quality of the card, and it just seems kind of lazy. For the Fallout Wasteland Warfare cards, they used like the 3D renders of the miniatures, and they had those on the cards, and that looked really cool because you were able to look at that card. It had the 3D render of the miniature, and you were able to, if you weren't familiar with Fallout, you were able to tell, oh, well, this card that miniature matches this render on the card. That's what that unit is linked to. I just don't like that. I don't like the fact they've just taken a screenshot of it. It just seems like, I'll be honest, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of those board games that you'll get based on a popular IP, and there's been little to no effort put into the game, and all of the art assets are just screenshots from the movie or screen grabs or whatever of the TV show, the movie, whatever. It's for me, it's not indicative of the quality that I think we've seen from Modiphius in all of their other games. And it seems really minor, and it seems like I'm nitpicking, but I don't like it. I hope that they change that going forward to either just artwork of the, like a concept art or whatever of the character, or just a 3D render of the miniature, or just a photo of the miniature of that character. I think any of those would make more sense than just taking a little screen grab from the video game and stick it on the card, because it detracts from the quality that is persistent throughout every other element of the game that you're about to see. So not only do you get the cards and your dice, etc. inside the core rule box, there's also 3 books that come as well. One of them, of course, is your core rule book. We'll start off there just because it's in my hand. Love the quality of the core rule book. It seems a lot tinier, but it is thick. There's just tons of information in this, and the quality inside this book is brilliant. You've got really great diagrams, very easy to understand. There's lots of really beautiful photography of the miniatures in kind of very artistic little scenes and great little dioramas. There's just been a lot of time and effort put into the rulebook, which again, time and effort, looks beautiful. Screenshot from the video game. It just doesn't make sense. Anyway, I promise that'll be the last time I talk about it. The rulebook itself, the rules for Elder Scrolls Call to Arms, I've read through them. There shouldn't be much of an issue whenever you get your hands on this. I think if you've played Fallout Wasteland Warfare, there will be familiarities with a lot of elements, but easy to understand, relatively easy to pick up and play. It is thick, which kind of was a little bit of a put off compared to the Fallout Wasteland Warfare book, which was kind of thickness-wise, kind of like more like this. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to this really thick-ass book. But don't be put off by it. There's a lot of great artwork, and I think they've definitely put in more time in explaining everything and putting in more diagrams for us as well. I think they've done a really great job on this. What I think they've done, what I'm more impressed by, is actually the quest book, which I'll get to in a second. Before we get there, I just want to chat about the Escape from Helgen booklet as well. This is basically like a kind of the getting started guide from Fallout Wasteland Warfare. So in here, it's kind of a quick start kind of booklet, and there's a number of tutorial scenarios that will teach you how to play the game. It's a great idea to have. I don't see myself using it. I think I would rather just jump in and play, but I think it's a great idea to have in there for people who are maybe new to miniatures games and who didn't maybe play Fallout Wasteland Warfare, other games from Modiphius. The quest book itself is something that I'm really impressed by, simply because of how many quests, pre-made quests, are in here. I mean, there's one-off scenarios, there's kind of what can be the starts of little narrative campaigns. This is chock full of scenarios and things to help you get started in the game and give it longevity. In my opinion, I think Fallout Wasteland Warfare probably had the same amount of quests. It's just that they were dispersed among all of those little boxes, and I think they're maybe playing catch up a little bit with that at the moment in releasing campaign expansions and narrative expansions with Fallout Wasteland Warfare now. I think the fact that they've put all of those into one booklet that's given to you from the start will help players have a lot more content at their fingertips whenever they start playing. So that's the core rule box. A lot of things done well. One thing not done so well. I want to chat about the miniatures. This is what most people probably care about. It's what I was excited about. It's also the thing that I'm most disappointed in, unfortunately, for a couple of reasons. So basically, Modiphius have made the move to high impact polystyrene. They were using resin and PVC for Fallout Wasteland Warfare, The PVC starter set for Fallout, there wasn't a lot of detail, but it was a lot more durable. The resin, much more higher detail. They have resin miniatures going, or they have had resin miniatures going forward. The detail on these guys, great. They're delicate, don't get me wrong, but great detail. Absolutely love the miniatures. The scenic bases, fantastic for Fallout Wasteland Warfare. I saw miniatures for Elder Scrolls Call to Arms at UK Games Expo last year. They looked great. Detail was fantastic. At this point, I assume that what I saw were resin miniatures. The high impact polystyrene, I have a little thing here. I'll of course cut in close-ups for you of some of the miniatures I've assembled as well. The detail is fantastic. Don't get me wrong, the high impact polystyrene, if it was between this and resin, I don't think you've really got much to worry about. Whenever it comes to detail loss, I think these are fantastic. They're going to be a little bit more durable as well. They're great. Don't get me wrong. The detail, fantastic. Don't have any issues with that whatsoever. I think they've done a great job. Very, very happy. What I dislike about these miniatures is that they're a pain in the arse to assemble. So I started off by assembling the Dungeon Delve kit. And I thought I'll start off with the skeletons because surely it's just bones. It's going to be easier. Pain in the arse, days. It took me days to get started. Here's an example of, this is the Stormcloaks instruction book. There's so many bits and pieces for us to assemble here. And as someone who doesn't usually struggle with assembling miniatures, I struggled. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't like it whatsoever. I was really frustrated because there's really tiny fiddly pieces and some of them won't necessarily be a perfect fit. So you've got to trim them down as well a little bit in some cases to make them all fit perfectly. And you've got maybe a forearm that you've got to attach to the rest of the arm, which you've then just got to attach to the main body, and the main body comes in two parts. And it's just like, surely there was a way to make these more easily assembled. We look at Games Workshop miniatures, yes, they're a lot chunkier, but they've kind of got the push fit, which is super simple for people to, if you're not familiar with miniatures, you just clip them out, push them together. So maybe a little bit of gluing needs to take place, but there's not a ton. Even with the Fallout Wasteland Warfare resin miniatures, there's assembly required, but the bulk of the miniature is that, it's maybe only attaching an arm or a head, something very, very simple. With Call to Arms, it's like each miniature is its own model kit. Do you know what I mean? Like there's so much assembly to be done here, and they're not really push fit. Some of the limbs, there's no very distinct or clear way on how you're meant to assemble it if you were to look at the pieces. And a lot of your time will be spent kind of just putting the legs in or whatever and rotating them around until it's like, oh, okay, that's how it's meant to fit in there. That's how it's meant to look. I've been playing miniatures for a long time. I've been assembling a lot of miniatures. I struggled with this. My main worry is that if people out there who are just fans of the video games and they pick these up and they try to assemble them, I don't want to sound like this is patronizing, but if I struggled with this, surely they will struggle more. Do you know what I mean? And if we're, my worry is that it's just going to put off new players because they're going to start building it and it's just going to be a pain in the arse and they're going to just toss them across the room and say, well, fake this, I'm done. I don't want to be spending the rest of it. I just want to play the game. Do you know what I mean? The quality, fantastic. Love the detail. I sincerely think surely there must have been an easier way for us to have these shipped so that they're more easily assembled. The other issue I have is the bases. So the miniatures, when they come, it's just the bodies. Do you know what I mean? So like I don't think that makes any sense whatsoever. I know how to explain it. So Fallout Wasteland Warfare miniatures, you got the actual person itself and a scenic base, and they slot it together. Fantastic. The scenic base is brilliant for Fallout Wasteland Warfare. Games Workshop do great scenic bases as well, as do a number of other companies too. For Wild West Exodus, fantastic bases there, scenic bases as well. For Elder Scrolls Call to Arms, I don't know why. For the high impact polystyrene, they just give you the plain old black base. There's no holes in the base for you to slot the guy in. So you're just left to figure out how to stick that guy to this base by yourself. Again, if you're new to the hobby, you've never done this before, and you just get the base, you don't have all the tools at your disposal, maybe you only have glue, and it's like, right, well, how do I attach this? What am I meant to do? What I've done, I actually, Micro Art Studio over in Poland, they'd sent me over some really cool bases. Just for me to try out, and they all came through at the same time, and I've actually just been attaching my Draugrs, my skeletons to these bases, as well as my Draugr champion. I'm about to do the female Dragonborn as well, and they just look way cooler, so much better on a scenic base, as opposed to just some standard thing. I don't really know why they chose, maybe they couldn't do this in the high impact polystyrene. I think they can only do the scenic bases in the resin. I just don't like that about this game. Those are my two big qualms, actually, my two big issues with Elder Scrolls Call to Arms. I think the rules are fine. It's going to be brilliant to play. It's going to be a lot of fun. The miniatures have great detail, but they are way too difficult to assemble. Once you figure out what they were thinking when they designed all this stuff, it'll become a lot more easy. But I think it creates just this big gap for people who are maybe new to the hobby to master, to get into it. Yeah, I don't like that there's no scenic bases. I just wish that the miniatures were a little bit easier to assemble. I think this game is going to be great. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I love the miniatures. I can't wait to get them painted. But if I had to give you guys a couple of things that I really didn't like when I've been going through this, those are really it. Aside from that, I think if you're a fan of Fallout Wasteland Warfare, if you're a fan of the Elder Scrolls, I think it'll be a great game to pick up. I'm excited to see where it goes, and it looks like they've got a lot of narrative expansions kind of planned, which is exciting. I think there's a lot of great content coming for this. Once we get through this whole COVID-19 bollocks, there's going to be a lot of great stuff coming to this game, and I think that's all great. I just wish that those two little things are just a really big issue for me. And I've chatted to a couple other people who have managed to get their hands on this game, and they have had the same issue where they're assembling these miniatures and they are finding it incredibly tough and incredibly frustrating. And I don't think that's what you want going through your head when you've just invested in a new game, or when it's a new miniatures game that's come to the market. You don't want to be sitting there feeling frustrated. You just want to get them assembled, get them onto the table, have them look really cool. What I will say is I'll be making another video soon, chatting you through these bases. I think they're fantastic. If you're going to get the Elder Scrolls Call to Arms game, I would definitely have a look at Micro Art Studios' custom bases. I think they're brilliant. And there's a number of different styles which will match kind of the different factions that we'll have in the game. But folks, this has been a really long rambling video. I hope you found it helpful. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Hopefully I wasn't too harsh. I do love Modiphius. I love the stuff to come out with, which is why I'm holding this to a really high standard. And I just think there's certain aspects that could have been better, but I think it's going to be a great game, and I can't wait to get it onto the tabletop. But folks, thank you for taking some time out of your day to spend it here on my channel. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, feel free to hit the subscribe button down below to be kept up to date when my new videos go live. But until next time, have a great week. I'll speak to you all soon.